Welcome back to the deep dive. We are opening up a file today that, honestly, it made me feel a little attacked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you open this up and you think you're reading about a stranger on the internet,
Mm.
and then about 3 sentences in, you realize you're reading a diary entry you wrote 10 years ago, or maybe, last week.
It is uncomfortable, isn't it?
It is.
It's that shock of recognition. We are looking at a query that came in from a community member, a user named Nachosaurus87.
Great name, by the way.
Fantastic name. And while on the surface it looks like a simple question about, real estate, it's actually a question about the fundamental architecture of human happiness.
It really is. We are unpacking a crisis that is theoretically affecting one specific user, but practically this is the universal hum of modern existence. If you were listening to this and you have ever felt that gnawing sense that your real life is happening somewhere else, somewhere you aren't, well, this is for you.
And crisis is exactly the right word, even though on paper it looks like a remarkably privileged problem to have.
Right. This isn't a crisis of survival, it's a crisis of selection.
A crisis of selection. I like that. Okay, so lay out the crime scene for us. What is happening in Nachosaurus 87's life that triggered this whole avalanche of research?
The situation is a classic, a textbook grass is always greener loop, but the specifics are painful because they're so actionable, so real.
Okay.
This user is 27 years old. They spent years living in a major city, dealing with the noise, the crowds, the expense, the concrete, and they spent that entire time fantasizing about the pastoral life.
A tree.
The dream. They wanted the silence, the trees, the mental space.
Which is the cottagecore fantasy, right? Escape the rat race, grow your own tomatoes, find peace, wear a lot of, linen.
Exactly. But here is the twist. They actually did it.
They did it?
They pulled the trigger, moved to the countryside, got the silence and the space, and now
Oh, no.
they're miserable.
Of course they are.
They're obsessively fantasizing about moving back to a big, bustling metropolis.
It's the ping pong effect. You just want what you don't have, simply because you don't have it.
It's almost worse than ping pong. It's a complete inability to land anywhere. They described it in the post as a constant sense of not living their best or right life.
Ooh.
And that phrasing is so key. The idea that there is a right life, like it's a winning lottery ticket, and they're just holding the losing numbers.
That phrase, living my best life, it's become such a toxic cliche, hasn't it?
It really has.
Because it implies that life is something you can optimize, like a computer's operating system. And if you aren't running at 100% efficiency, if you aren't constantly euphoric, then you failed. You just picked the wrong map.
That is exactly the mechanism we are going to take apart today. And we have a massive stack of sources to help us diagnose this. We aren't just going to give advice. We are going to look at the mechanics of why the brain does this.
And we have some heavy hitters in the stack. I saw clinical research on social media dysmorphia, which is, it's terrifying, by the way. I actually put a piece of tape over my front-facing camera after reading that study.
It is genuinely disturbing stuff. We're also looking at studies from the Global Media Journal. We've got data on cognitive behavioral therapy from the IJFMR, and some fascinating psychological frameworks on something called the focusing illusion.
Okay, so the mission today is to answer the question, is the grass actually greener? Or is there something wrong with our eyes? And if our vision is distorted, can we fix the lens without having to, call a moving van every 6 months?
Spoiler alert. It's usually the eyes.
I figured.
But let's start with the brain. Because if Nachosaurus 87 is sitting on a porch in the beautiful countryside and feels miserable, that is an internal hardware problem, not a location problem.
You mentioned the focusing illusion.
Right. This is a term I've heard thrown around in pop psychology, but I want to get into the weeds. What is it, technically? Okay, so this is the diagnostic cornerstone for our deep dive today. The concept comes from our Verywell Mind source, but it's rooted in the Nobel Prize-winning work of Daniel Kahneman.
Okay, so it's legit.
Very. The focusing illusion is it's a cognitive bias where we systematically overestimate the importance of a single factor in our well-being just because we're currently paying attention to it.
Okay, make that concrete for me. How does that play out in real life?
Think about the famous California study. Researchers asked people living in the Midwest, would you be happier if you lived in California?
And everyone says yes, obviously.
Almost everyone says yes. Why? They focus entirely on the weather,
Sure.
they think. California equals sunshine, sunshine equals happiness, Midwest equals snow, snow equals misery.
They aren't totally wrong. Sunshine is nice. I'm definitely happier when it's sunny out.
You think you are, and that is the trap. You see, they aren't wrong about the weather. California is, in fact, warmer, but they are profoundly wrong about the weight of the weather and the total equation of their lives.
The weight of it.
Yeah. When you actually move to California, the weather just becomes the background. It becomes normal within weeks. You still have to pay taxes, you still fight with your spouse, you still sit in traffic. In fact, you sit in much, much worse traffic.
So the California self is just the Ohio self, with a tan and a much higher cost of living.
Precisely. The focusing illusion makes you think the move will change everything. It highlights this one single variable and completely ignores the thousands of other variables that actually make up your day-to-day existence.
So in the case of our user, not just Source 87, they're focusing entirely on location. They think city versus country is the only switch on the whole dashboard.
Exactly. They are hyper-fixated on the location. They think, if I just change the backdrop, the play will turn from a tragedy into a comedy. But they're ignoring the script, the actors, and the director, which are all internal.
Right.
The source from Verywell Mind puts it bluntly. You take yourself with you, you take your neuroses, your boredom threshold, your insecurities, they all get packed in the moving van.
That is a depressing thought, isn't it? The idea that you can't outrun your own brain.
It's sobering, but I think it's also liberating. Because if the location isn't the magic bullet, you can stop exhausting yourself trying to find the perfect city.
That's a good point.
But, and this is a huge but, we have to acknowledge that this natural cognitive bias, this focusing illusion, it's being weaponized. It's being put on steroids by technology.
And this is where we get into the highlight reel culture. There was a great quote from the community discussion on Reddit about this user. Someone wrote, "Don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel."
It's a classic for a reason. But we need to look at the clinical side of this because it's getting more extreme. We have a paper here from the Global Media Journal that discusses a phenomenon called Snapchat dysmorphia.
Okay, I saw this in the notes, and I thought it was just a media buzzword, like text-neck. But this is a legitimate medical concern.
It is a recognized clinical concern coined around 2018. The paper breaks this down, and it marks a really disturbing shift in plastic surgery trends.
A shift from what? What were people doing before?
Historically, if you went to a plastic surgeon, you brought a photo of a celebrity. You'd say, "Give me Brad Pitt's jawline or Angelina Jolie's lips."
Right.
That is an external and, mostly unrealistic standard. You were aspiring to look like a movie star.
Which is unhealthy for sure, but at least you know Brad Pitt is a different person.
Yeah.
You know deep down that's a reach.
Exactly. But now, patients are coming in with photos of themselves, but it's themselves run through a Snapchat or an Instagram filter.
So they want to look like their own digital avatar.
And this is so dangerous because of the specific mechanics of those filters.
Yeah.
They don't just smooth your skin or remove a blemish. They fundamentally change your facial architecture.
How so?
They enlarge the eyes, they narrow the jaw, they adjust the ratio of the nose to the lips. They create a facial geometry that is often physically impossible to replicate with surgery without, destroying the function of the face.
So you look in the mirror, and your actual reflection looks wrong.
Yeah.
Because your brain has accepted the filtered version as the real you.
Correct. The source notes this is leading to body dysmorphic disorder, or BDD. You develop a profound disconnect between your physical reality and your digital identity.
And that connects right back to our user, doesn't it? I mean, even if they aren't getting plastic surgery, the mechanism is the same. If they are scrolling through Instagram, seeing their friends in the city, they aren't seeing the reality of the city.
Not at all. They are seeing the filtered city life. They see the perfect brunch, the sunset from the rooftop bar, the cute outfit. They don't see the cockroaches, the smell of garbage in August, the crushing loneliness of being in a crowd of millions.
And that's where the Arab Journal's platform source on social comparison theory comes in. We have to understand the difference between upward and downward comparison.
This is crucial. Social comparison theory posits that we determine our own social and personal worth based on how we stack up against others. Upward comparison is comparing yourself to those you perceive as superior.
Which almost always leads to feeling like garbage.
It leads to envy and dissatisfaction. Downward comparison is when you compare yourself to those perceived as worse off. That can boost self-esteem, but only temporarily, and it's still rooting your self-worth in comparison, which is a really fragile foundation.
But the source made a really interesting point about propinquity, which is a word I definitely haven't used since the SATs.
It just means proximity or closeness. The source argues that envy requires propinquity. Historically, you didn't envy the King of France. He was too far away. His life was an abstraction.
Right.
You envied your neighbor who had a slightly fatter pig or a slightly bigger barn.
Because that felt achievable. It was close enough to feel personal.
Exactly. Envy requires that little voice that says, it could have been me. If it's totally out of reach, you don't really care. But social media completely destroys distance. It creates what the source calls false propinquity.
Explain that. False propinquity.
You look at an influencer in a beautiful loft in New York or a digital nomad working from a beach in Bali, and because they are on your phone, in your hand, in your bed with you at 11 p.m., your brain registers them as a peer.
Wow.
Your primate brain thinks, that person is in my tribe. Why is their life so much better than mine?
So you feel the sharp, personal envy of a next-door neighbor, but for a life that is completely curated and possibly entirely fake.
It creates a false proximity. And for a 27-year-old like Notchosaurus 87, that constant signal of everyone else is winning makes their quiet life in the country feel like a failure rather than just a different choice. They feel like they are the only one not at the party.
Okay, so we have the diagnosis. Our brains are prone to the focusing illusion, thinking a move will fix everything, and we're constantly bombarding ourselves with these false comparisons that make our current reality look drab.
Right.
Usually this is where we'd say go to therapy. But the community response to this user was fascinating. They didn't suggest meds, they suggested a reading list.
I love this approach. It's bibliotherapy.
Bibliotherapy. Using books to fix your brain. I like it.
It's the idea that fiction isn't just entertainment. It's a flight simulator for your life choices. It allows you to run the simulation of what if without actually having to, blow up your life.
And the theme that just dominated the recommendations was this idea of the multiverse and regret.
Which makes total sense. If you are paralyzed by the idea that you picked the wrong life, the most healing thing you can do is inhabit a world where you get to pick all the lives and see what actually happens.
The big recommendation here, I mean, it was repeated dozens of times, was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I feel like this book is practically standard issue for anyone turning 30 these days.
It really is, and for good reason. For those who haven't read it, the premise is a direct answer to Notchosaurus 87's problem. The protagonist, Nora, attempts suicide because she is just overwhelmed by regrets. She wakes up in a library between life and death.
And every single book on the shelf is a life she would have lived if she had made a different choice along the way.
Right. What if I hadn't quit swimming? What if I had married that coffee shop guy? What if I had become a glaciologist in the Arctic? She gets to literally pull the book off the shelf and live that life.
It's the ultimate wish fulfillment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's scratching that deep itch of, I could have been great.
But, and here is the key insight from the community discussion. What does she find when she does this? She jumps into the life where she's an Olympic swimmer. She has the gold medal. She has the fame. But what else?
Right, the other stuff.
She finds that her father is still dead. Her brother hates her for being the favorite, and she's incredibly lonely.
She jumps into a life where she's a famous rock star.
And she's addicted to drugs, and her relationship is a total disaster. The community consensus was that this book completely changes your perspective on regret because it dismantles the entire idea of the perfect life.
So the lesson isn't, one of these lives is the winner.
The lesson is that every life comes with a sandwich.
The manwish.
It's a metaphor I like to use. Every life has a shit sandwich you have to eat. In the city, the sandwich is noise, high rent, and rats. In the country, the sandwich is boredom, isolation, and driving 20 minutes just for a gallon of milk. You don't get a life without the sandwich. You just get to pick which flavor of sandwich you prefer.
That is a liberating, it's slightly gross way to look at it.
I like it. The community also recommended Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Now, this is a sci-fi thriller, but the philosophical core is identical to The Midnight Library.
I read this one. It is intense. It's a page-turner.
It really is. You have a physics professor, Jason, who is a happy family man, but he's professionally pretty mediocre. He gets abducted by a version of himself from a parallel universe, let's call him Jason 2, who chose his career over his family.
So Jason 2 is the success. He's the genius. He won all the awards.
But he's miserable. He looks at Jason 1's life, the messy house, the noisy kid, the average job, and he thinks, that is the dream. He literally commits a transdimensional kidnapping just to get the boring life.
It forces you to look at the cost of the grass on the other side, right?
Yeah.
We always look at the asset. Oh, they have a big city apartment, but we rarely look at the liability on the balance sheet.
Precisely. And then there was Replay by Ken Grimwood. This is an older one, from the 80s. A guy dies at 43 and wakes up back in his dorm room at 18 with all his memories intact.
The ultimate do-over.
That's
He can
true.
invest in Apple before it's Apple. He can bet on all the right sports games.
And he does that. He becomes incredibly rich. He sleeps with all the women he wanted to sleep with in college. He fixes every mistake. And then he dies at 43 again.
Whoa.
And wakes up at 18 again. He does this over and over and over.
It's like Groundhog Day, but for an entire life.
Exactly. And the takeaway is that he eventually realizes he can't win life. No matter how much money he makes or how perfectly he optimizes his choices, tragedy still happens, people still get sick, he still feels empty sometimes. It's a powerful argument that the external circumstances, the city versus country debate, are secondary to how you engage with the life you actually have.
That leads us perfectly into the second category of books the community recommended. Finding the Self versus the Situation. This challenges the focusing illusion directly. It says, the problem isn't where you are, it's who you are.
And Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse came up a lot here.
I have not read that since high school English class.
It holds up so well. One user called it a short read, big ideas, and said it's perfect for a quarter-life crisis. Siddhartha tries everything. He tries extreme asceticism, starving himself in the woods. He tries hedonism, becoming a wealthy merchant and having lovers.
So he does the city life and the country life, in a way.
Essentially, yes. He tries all the external paths, and he finds that none of them provides the peace he is looking for. The peace only comes when he stops searching and learns to listen to the river.
Which is a big metaphor for presence.
Exactly, for just being.
Which brings us to The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This is a massive bestseller, but what is the core argument that's relevant to our user?
The argument is that past and future are illusions that cause all our pain. Our user is living in the memory of the city they left, the past, or the fantasy of the future city they want to move to, the future. They are completely missing the only thing that actually exists, the present moment in the countryside.
Be present. It sounds so simple, but it is the hardest thing in the world to do when you're in that spiral of dissatisfaction.
It is. And for a heavier hitter, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl was described by multiple users as mandatory life reading.
That book, it puts our modern dissatisfaction into perspective pretty quickly, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Frankl was a psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor. His entire thesis is about finding meaning even in the most horrific suffering imaginable.
Right.
If he can find a way to orient his mind towards meaning in a concentration camp, it suggests that our dissatisfaction with city versus country life is perhaps a crisis of meaning, not a crisis of location.
That is a profound shift. It stops being about the furniture of your life and starts being about the foundation.
Exactly. Now, there was another theme that I think explains the anxiety behind the choice itself. We have to talk about the paradox of choice.
This is the Barry Schwartz book, a classic.
It is, and it explains why Notosaurus 87 is suffering so much. Schwartz argues that we equate freedom with choice. We think the more options we have, the freer and happier we are.
But he says that's a complete lie.
It's a trap. If you have two options, chocolate or vanilla, you pick one, you're happy, you move on. If you have 31 flavors plus 10 toppings plus a waffle cone versus a sugar cone, you're paralyzed. And once you finally pick, you are less satisfied because you're constantly thinking, maybe I should have had the strawberry cheesecake instead.
It's the opportunity cost. With remote work and the ability to move anywhere, our user technically has thousands of options.
Yeah.
They could live anywhere.
And that abundance of choice is the source of the anxiety. It creates a constant low-level hum of, did I mess up? Is there a better option out there that I'm missing?
And we are terrible at answering that question because, as Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert points out, we're just awful at predicting the future.
Gilbert's research is fascinating. It really is. He shows that humans are biologically incapable of accurately predicting what will make their future selves happy. We rely on the focusing illusion. We think, new city, lasting happiness.
Right.
But Gilbert's data shows we succumb to something called hedonic adaptation.
Which means the shiny new thing becomes the dusty old thing really fast.
Really, really fast. We move to the city, we get a dopamine hit for about 3 weeks, and then we return to our baseline level of happiness. So if you are a miserable person in the country, you will likely be a miserable person in the city once the novelty wears off.
You'll just be miserable with better takeout options.
Exactly. Miserable, but with pad thai.
Ouch. But true. Before we move on from the books, we have to mention the wholesome category, because sometimes you just need a break from all the existential dread.
Yes, thank you. The House in the Cerulean Sea was recommended for this. It's a fantasy novel, but it's about finding a chosen family in the most unexpected place. Users described it as a warm blanket in book form.
That sounds nice.
And surprisingly, Ecclesiastes from the Bible was recommended.
Even for the non-religious?
Yes, specifically for them. A user cited it for its perspective on the cyclical nature of life. The whole idea of there is nothing new under the sun. It can be comforting to realize that your specific dissatisfaction isn't some unique personal failing. It's an ancient human condition. People were having midlife crises in 300 BC.
So we've simulated other lives through fiction, and we've diagnosed the problem. But understanding the focusing illusion doesn't necessarily stop you from crying in your kitchen because you feel lonely. We need actual tools.
We do. We're going to transition from bibliotherapy to active clinical practice, and for that, we need to talk about CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy.
We have a study here from the IGFMR, the International Journal of, let me check my notes, Future Generation Communication and Networking.
Catchy title.
Rolls right off the tongue. But the data is sharp. They looked at 18 to 26-year-olds, our users' exact demographic. They found that 70% engaged in social comparison and 63% had anxiety or depression linked directly to it. That is a massive number.
It's an epidemic of comparison.
But the solution part of the study is hopeful.
It is. The study found that a CBT intervention resulted in a 55% drop in compulsive social media use and a 42% boost in self-esteem.
That is significant. So what does a CBT intervention actually look like for someone listening right now? Do they need a couch and a notepad?
Ideally, yes, find a good therapist, but you can do the groundwork yourself. CBT is fundamentally about catching, checking, and changing your maladaptive thoughts.
Catch, check, change. Okay, walk me through it. Let's role play this. I'm Nachosaurus 87. I'm sitting in my farmhouse feeling that dread creep in.
Okay, what is the hot thought, the one running through your head on a loop?
The thought is, I am miserable here. Everyone in the city is having more fun than me. I made a huge life-ruining mistake.
Okay, step one, catch the thought. You have to recognize that this is a thought, not a fact. It feels like a fact, it feels true, but it is a mental event. You just label it. I am having the thought that I made a mistake.
Okay, I've caught it. It's squirming in the net. What's next?
Step two, check it. Put it on trial. Look for the evidence. Is it true that you are miserable every single second of the day?
Oh, well, no. I like my coffee this morning. The sunset yesterday was nice. I saw a deer.
Okay. Is it true that everyone in the city is having fun right now?
Probably not.
Yeah.
My friend Dave just posted a picture of his bike getting stolen, and my other friend is complaining about her landlord.
Exactly. You look for any evidence that contradicts the catastrophic thought. You poke holes in it. And then, step three, change it. You rewrite the narrative to be more accurate and balanced.
So the new thought would be something like, I am feeling lonely right now because I haven't left the house in 2 days, but living in the city had challenges too, like stolen bikes and bad landlords. No life is perfect.
That is a perfect balanced thought. It doesn't deny your feelings of loneliness, but it stops the spiral. It debunks the focusing illusion in real time.
It sounds so simple, but in the heat of the moment, you know, when you're scrolling Instagram and you feel that jealousy spike,
Yeah.
it's so hard to be that rational. Your brain is just on fire.
Which is why you need the emergency brake.
Yeah.
Our sources from CBT Los Angeles and Find Calm recommend the STAPI skill. This comes from Dialectical Behavior Therapy, or DBT.
I love a good acronym. Give it to me.
This is a distress tolerance skill. It is designed for that exact moment when you feel the urge to react impulsively, like quitting your job on the spot, booking a moving van, or just scrolling mindlessly through Instagram for 2 hours to numb out.
Okay, so step one, S is for stop.
Do not react. Freeze. Literally stop what you are doing. If your thumb is hovering over the Instagram icon, stop. If you are about to type a frantic text to your partner saying we have to move back to the city, stop.
Okay, I'm frozen. I'm a statue. Now what?
Step two, T. Take a breath.
This feels a little cliche. Just breathe.
It's not just a figure of speech. It is physiology. The source specifically recommends box breathing. You inhale for 4 seconds. You hold that breath for 4 seconds. You exhale for 4 seconds. You pause for 4 seconds and repeat.
Why is this step so important? What's it doing?
You have to hack your biology. When you are in that grass is greener panic, your sympathetic nervous system is active. You are in fight or flight mode. Your brain thinks the lack of city life is a saber-toothed tiger coming to get you.
So I need to tell my body there is no tiger.
Exactly. Deep, rhythmic breathing engages the parasympathetic nervous system. It physically downregulates your heart rate and tells your brain you are safe. You cannot think clearly until you have done this.
Okay, heart rate is down. I've stopped. I've taken a breath. Step 3 is O, observe.
Notice your thoughts and your feelings without judgment. This is the hard part. You might observe, I am feeling envy right now, or I am feeling restless and agitated.
And the without judgment part means not adding, and I'm a loser for feeling this way.
Correct. You are a scientist observing data. I notice a feeling of tightness in my chest. I notice a thought that I want to move to New York. Just notice it. Don't buy into it. Don't fight it. Just watch it pass by like a cloud.
And finally, P, proceed mindfully.
Act with intentionality, not with reflex. You ask yourself, what is the wise and effective thing to do right now? Is browsing Zillow for city apartments effective? No, it just makes you sadder. Is going for a walk in the woods effective?
Yeah.
Yes. Is calling a friend to connect effective? Yes.
It's the difference between driving the car and letting the screaming toddler in the back seat grab the steering wheel.
That's a perfect analogy. The toddler is your impulse. You need to stay the driver.
I feel like if everyone practiced the S-P skill, we'd have a lot less chaos in the world.
Yeah.
But there's one more framework we need to discuss, and it deals with the pain that remains even after you S-P. It's called radical acceptance.
That sounds intense. Radical acceptance.
It comes from Psychology Today, and the core mantra is, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Oof. Okay, break that distinction down for me because they sound like the same thing.
Pain is the reality of the situation. I live in the countryside, and I feel lonely today. That is pain. It hurts. Suffering arises from not accepting that pain. Suffering is the mental tantrum you throw about the pain.
So the tantrum sounds like, it shouldn't be this way. Why did I ever move here? I'm so stupid. This isn't fair.
Exactly. Suffering is the resistance to reality. It's the this shouldn't be happening part.
So radical acceptance is what? Just giving up? Is it just rolling over and saying, my life sucks? Oh, well, I guess this is it.
No, and that is the most common misconception. It does not mean approving of the situation. It doesn't mean you can never move. It means acknowledging the facts of reality so you can move forward effectively. You stop fighting reality.
So instead of fighting the fact that you live in the country, you say, I live in the country. I am currently unhappy. This is the reality of my situation right now.
Yes, because once you accept the reality, once you stop wasting 90% of your energy on the tantrum, you free up all that energy to actually solve the problem or to find moments of joy in the present moment.
The source outlines the practice. Acknowledge the present. Ask yourself, can I control this right this second? You cannot teleport to the city right now, so why get angry? And then let go of judgment.
Let the past be in the past. You moved. You can't unmove yesterday. You are here now. This is the starting point.
So we have the diagnosis, which is the focusing, illusion, and social comparison. We have the simulations, which is the bibliotherapy. We have the practical tools, which are CBT, the SEPO-P skill, and radical acceptance.
Right.
Now, let's talk about rewiring the mindset for the long term. How do we shift from what the sources call a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset?
This concept from Verywell Mind is so vital for the envy component of this problem. The scarcity mindset is the belief that life is a zero-sum game. If someone else wins, gets the job, the partner, the house, there's less for you.
Which is exactly how social media feels. Seeing someone else's perfect vacation photos feels like a deduction from my own personal happiness account.
But that is a complete logical fallacy. The shift is viewing happiness as a bottomless well. A friend's win is just a win. It doesn't deplete the supply of joy in the universe. It adds to it.
I love that image. Happiness as a bottomless well. But to tap into that well, we need practical habits. We need to actually water the grass, to go back to that piece of Reddit wisdom.
The grass is greenest where you water it. It's cheesy, it's on a million Pinterest boards, but it's 100% true.
It implies active effort, right?
Yeah.
If you are bored in the country, are you actually engaging with the community? Are you gardening? Are you hiking? Or are you just sitting inside looking at your phone wishing you were somewhere else?
Which brings us to the very practical habit of the phone bedtime.
If social media is the accelerant for this fire of envy, you have to limit your exposure. Use the screen time limits on your phone. Set a hard stop time at night. Physically break the cycle of comparison. You cannot heal from the poison of comparison if you are constantly injecting it into your veins.
And connect with something real. The source mentioned the biophilia hypothesis.
Yes, from the Arab Journal study. It's the idea that humans have an innate tendency to seek connections with nature. Connecting with nature is a proven, reliable way to increase life satisfaction. It powerfully contrasts the artificiality of the feed with the reality of the biological world.
That is the ultimate irony of our users' situation, isn't it? They move to the country for nature. They are literally surrounded by the biophilia cure, but they're inside, looking at a screen, wishing they were in the concrete jungle.
Because the screen tells them the concrete jungle is where the best life is happening, but the trees outside their window are real. The air is real. The ground is real.
So, to summarize where we've been today, we started with Notchosaurus 87's dilemma, this agonizing ping-pong between the city and the country. We diagnosed it not as a real estate problem, but as a brain problem, the focusing illusion and the digital distortion of social media.
We explored the multiverse of regrets through the Midnight Library, Dark Matter, and Replay. And we realized that no life is perfect. Every life has a sandwich you have to eat. We learned the STOP skill to handle the acute anxiety of choice and radical acceptance to deal with the present reality.
And we talked about rewiring our brains to see abundance instead of scarcity. But there was one final thought I want to leave you with. It comes from that same Reddit thread from a comment about the book Freedom by Jonathan Franzen. But it wasn't really about the book. It was about a museum.
The Smithsonian.
Yes. The commenter suggested going to the Smithsonian Natural History Museum and just walking through the Hall of Human History.
Have you ever done this, looking at the scale of geological time? The deep time.
It's terrifying and comforting at the exact same time. It's a weird feeling.
Imagine the history of the Earth, 4.5 billion years. Now imagine the history of humanity on that timeline. It is a blip. It's a fraction of a second on the clock of the universe.
The commenter called us fruit flies. We are fruit flies in the history of the world. Our lives are impossibly, laughably short. And that sounds depressing, but it is actually the most liberating thought you can have.
How so?
If we are fruit flies, if our individual lives are that small and that brief in the grand cosmic scheme, does the pressure to make the perfect choice really matter as much as we think it does? Does it matter if you live in the city or the country? Does the universe care if you picked the best life?
No. The universe is busy making stars and black holes. It's not worry about my zip code.
Exactly. And if the universe doesn't care, maybe you can stop carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Maybe you can just be a fruit fly.
Just enjoy the flight, eat some fruit, buzz around a little.
Exactly. Stop looking at the neighbor's lawn. Look at the patch of dirt under your own feet. It might be messy, it might not be perfect, but it's yours.
And start watering. Start watering.
Thank you for diving in with us today. To Notchosaurus 87 and everyone else listening, take a breath. You're doing just fine. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
See you then.